in the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can cheat you blind. In the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can cheat you blind. In the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can cheat you blind. In the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can cheat you blind. So it is in this context that the United States has taken lethal, targeted action against Al-Qaeda and its associated forces, including with remotely piloted aircraft commonly referred to as drones. As was true in previous armed conflicts, this new technology raises profound questions about who is targeted and why, about civilian casualties and the risk of creating new enemies, about the legality of such strikes under U.S. and international law, about accountability and morality. So let me address these questions. To begin with, our actions are effective. Don't take my word for it. In the intelligence gathered at bin Laden's compound, we found that he wrote, "We could lose the reserves to enemy's airstrikes. We cannot fight airstrikes with explosives." Other communications from Al-Qaeda operatives confirm this as well. Dozens of highly skilled Al-Qaeda commanders, trainers, bomb makers, and operatives have been taken off the battlefield. Plots have been disrupted that would have targeted international aviation, U.S. transit systems, European cities, and our troops in Afghanistan. Simply put, these strikes have saved lives.
Simply put, these strikes have saved lives.
Now to that secret document, 16 pages long and stirring up so much controversy tonight. It is a kind of handbook for lethal power against terrorists, even if they are American citizens. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl tells us about the news today.
By one count, President Obama has already used unmanned CIA drones to strike more than 300 suspected terrorist targets, even more than his predecessor. But today we learned just how much authority the administration believes it has to kill without trial or evidence suspected terrorists, even American citizens. A newly disclosed Justice Department document says American citizens tied to Al-Qaeda can be killed if, quote, an informed high-level official believes the target poses an imminent threat. But the document says it, quote, does not require the government to have clear evidence. Case in point, Anwar al-Awlaki, an American citizen and top Al-Qaeda leader linked to several terror attacks. He was killed in a 2011 drone strike. Human rights advocates say the Justice Department memo goes way too far and
justifies essentially a claim that the executive branch can be judge, jury, and executioner.
As soon as he became president, Barack Obama stopped CIA tactics like waterboarding that he considered torture. But this justifies outright killing of a suspected terrorist. How does dropping a bomb on an American citizen without any judicial review, any trial, not raise the very human rights questions or more human rights questions than something like waterboarding?
The president understands the gravity of these issues. That is why he is committed to taking very seriously both his responsibilities in this.
The White House says that the president's top priority has been to protect the American people in a way consistent with our values. But you can expect that his choice to run the CIA will face sharp questions on this at his confirmation hearings later this week. And Diane, some in Congress are saying they want to impose limits on the administration's ability to use drone strikes.
All right, Jonathan Carl reporting in from the White House. Thank you, John.
Simply put, these strikes have saved lives.
We told you. The future is now. Robots are replacing combat soldiers. Unnecessary casualties are becoming part of the past. Minimizing collateral damage and uninvolved casualties. Duke Robotics presents TCAD, the future soldier. With TCAD, the future battlefield has arrived. A fully robotic battalion, capable of identification and surgical neutralization of hostiles in the field, can now be deployed to places human soldiers can't reach, or simply shouldn't have to go. TCAD is able to adjust to the right place and time. The TCAD robot is designed to identify, target, and engage in real-life scenarios. TCAD takes the full recoil of the weapon discharge, compensates for its force, and quickly readjusts to stay on target and in the fight.
Simply put, these strikes have saved lives.
Dragonfly Board of Directors. This, by no means, is a thorough, in-depth background investigation into each of its members. However, you'll notice a common connection and background with some of its members. The chairman, Cameron Schell, is an entrepreneur and serial founder. As his bio states, he is responsible for the financial building of various companies. Much information online from various sources typically outline the same information regarding his early ventures, a brief moment of homelessness, which I personally find highly dubious, as I do the many rags to riches sob stories of the technocratic globalists behind the New World Order. But then again, that's just me. Scott Larson has a background in finance and transportation. Transportation being key in the consolidation of the ever-growing surveillance apparatus. After all, if you control people's movements, you control what people have or don't have access to. Dennis Silva, background in corporate, security, and technology. Olin Assen, corporate and securities lawyer. Mr. Andy Card, the same guy who whispered in Bush's ear when the planes hit the tower. He probably whispered something along the lines of, "Everything is going according to plan." Andrew Card, who was part of the war criminal cabinet under George W. Bush, a CFR member and White House Chief of State from 2001 to 2006. He serves on the board of directors on a number of agencies and companies, including the transportation and automotive industries, both of which historically have benefited during the last bailouts at the cost of the taxpayer. John Mitnick, an attorney serving at the highest level of government and the private sector. Mitnick has served as a general counsel of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and chief legal officer of a federal security and law enforcement agency. Mitnick has also held high positions of a Raytheon division, of which Raytheon Technologies has a reported revenue for 2020 of nearly $100 billion. Guess who's paid a lot of that? Edmund C. Moy, a quote-unquote public servant, appointed as a director of the U.S. Mint by George W. Bush. From 2001 to 2006, he served as a special assistant to the president for presidential personnel at the White House and assisted the president in staffing most cabinet departments and independent agencies, and later helped form the Department of Homeland Security. He's had his hand in various other industries, as most of these individuals. Jack Chow. Dr. Chow was ambassador, special representative on global HIV and AIDS for Secretary of State Colin Powell, another Bush-era war criminal, and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Health and Science, Julie Myers Wood, appointed by Bush to serve as Assistant Secretary of DHS for ICE. Captain Lawrence Vincent currently serves as Chief of Staff, Personnel Vetting Transformation Office within the Office of Undersecretary for Intelligence. Previously, Captain Vincent worked Russian engagements for the Chief of Naval Operations, served as the Operations Center Director for all naval forces in Europe and Africa, in addition to Central Command in the Middle East. He was Assistant Chief of Staff for the Commander Naval Forces Europe and Naval Forces Africa, Commodore and Deputy Commodore for the Helicopter Sea Combat Wing, and Deputy Strategic Effect Division for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Molly Wilkinson. If you got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. Molly Wilkinson served as political appointee under Bush from 2003 to 2009, which included service at the U.S. Department of Defense with almost a year in Iraq. Aside from other roles in government, Ms. Wilkinson was named Vice President of Regulatory Affairs at American Airlines in January 2018, where she is responsible for the airline's regulatory affairs practice.
Piloting a project with Westport, Connecticut.